first of all, a huge humble namaste to all of you sitting here in this event. I am so thrilled to be part of the Startup South 8. Thank you, Ushe, and the entire team in Africa. I'm so excited to be here, and it's going to be 3 in the afternoon in India. And I hope my session will be useful to the audience. I listened to Mr. Paul's session and some of the questions you all asked. So it's great going, and I wish you all the same energy for the rest of the day and for tomorrow, and make the best of this event. So I have a request to the events team to possibly see if I can share my own screen, and I just need a confirmation of that. Can I go ahead and share my own screen? Thank you.
Ed, go ahead,
so I
share
hope
your own
you
screen,
can all
please.
see my presentation. I do hear a lot of other voices too. I hope it's not disturbing to the audience. Thank you so much. I just need one more confirmation that everyone is able to see this slide.
Yes,
how
we
to
can see your
prepare and
slide.
also be a part of. Awesome. Thank you so much. So in the next few minutes, I'm just going to set up a timer as well, just so that I'm respectful to all of your time here and keep my presentation within the time, also allowing questions from you all. So this is what I'm going to talk about. I represent an organization called Zoho, and today I'm here to talk about a few tips that we think is secret, but not so secret, the most obvious tips that we all learn from the growth story, the growth journey of this organization called Zoho. So my request to you all is, if you can, use these hashtags to talk about what is the most relatable thing in my presentation. If you want to add points, if you are on social media, if you can use these hashtags and talk about what was the thing that you liked the most, any questions you have that we could not cover at the end of the session. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'll be following these hashtags as well. This is a quick introduction of who I am. Right now, the most important role I play, other than being a mom, is being the global head of Zoho for Startups program. So day in and day out, me and my very small team, we converse with the startups across the world, and we have a specific program through which we have a specific offering to you all, the startups. So I have my colleagues, Kenny and team today, who are present with you all physically there in the event space, and we have a dedicated booth for Zoho and Zoho for Startups. You can know everything about what we are doing in Zoho Africa and in Zoho for Startups. So anything related to SaaS, cloud software, you can have a conversation with us. So this is who I am and where you can find me on social media, just in case you think a connection is important, or to have conversations on the fifth industrial revolution, or something about startups, about founding mindset, about how to use the right software for your startups. So me and my team are here to answer some of the questions and join the conversation deep and bold today. So when I look at a quick snapshot of history, and I also heard Paul and some of the interesting notes that he shared about Singapore and Dubai and youth. So talking about the core industrial revolution, what we are talking about a lot in India, where I'm sitting right now, and in Africa, is we've still scratched the surface of Industrial Revolution 4.0, haven't we? Keeping in mind the 2 full years of pandemic, COVID, that had on all of us, and how many businesses had to shut shop, had to reimagine themselves to this new future. I think there are still a majority of the companies who have just scratched the surface of transformation, of digitally transforming themselves, how to understand workflows, how to understand how to automate your business on a daily basis. Today we talk about AI, we talk about Internet of Things, we talk about big data, while we also talk about the transformation of the business, how to go online, how to use some of the cloud software. We also already are talking about the Industrial Revolution 5.0, whose core focus, the concept seem to be revolving around sustainability, not just with terms of how to run a successful business or profitability, but sustainability beyond just running a business as citizens, as individuals, as someone who is capable of dreaming a better future than where we are right now. So, a lot of these conversations are going to be centered around humans, interestingly, and the majority of the focus is also going to be in all of these developments. What happens to our concern for the environment? So, today I'm going to share all of this with respect to what we have been doing at Zoho. I hope you would find this useful as we talk about the dance of human and machines coming together. Well, how good can machines be as good as humans who are creating it? So, some time back, when we were talking to a bunch of startups and a few conversations around how we talk about a large audience, how we launch campaigns, how we do some marketing materials around our business, I realized there were a few observations that stand out in order to understand why we have to focus on the human-centeredness as part of fifth industrial revolution. And only around 2019, I realized that the fact of even having consent to be added to a specific group on WhatsApp finally was even decided. It took us so many years to understand how communication is not just available for everyone just because you have a personally identifiable information of a prospect or an end user. While also experiencing the pandemic, all of us were deeply affected in various ways. We also saw how this data that was available for free, unstructured way, was also misused voluntarily and involuntarily by a lot of people out there. Here is one example how the humanness sometimes was forgotten. When someone in the house has died, the rest of the people are mourning, but just because the data is available on how many people we lost in a span of 1 week, we also had people reaching out to this family on, hey, how can we help in deep cleaning your house? I'm just highlighting a few important stories out there, just a very minor fraction of how some of us who dream big, who want to run big companies, who want to handle data, who are looking at automating some of these data for the success of our business, sometimes unintentionally and intentionally fail to see the human impact that this might create. This was one of the stories that deeply touched me being a mom, how some of the algorithms fail us big time, of how her mom had reached out via Instagram to the tech company saying how she does not want to see a certain kind of ads because she was already grieving a child whose face she has not seen. This one is also very close to my heart. It's a painful favorite where if you're imagining the future generation and you're looking at machines and machine learning and neuroplasticity and how to imagine a future, are we looking at the past in the right way? Are we handling the future in a very responsible manner? So there was a study where a bunch of people used AI tools to run through 7,000 books, about 6,000 movie synopsis, and about 1,000 plus movie script where they identified something called Cinderella complex. That's basically that talks about women or the female protagonist in any story via a book or a movie has this complex where she needs to be rescued by the protagonist that is usually a male. Now, with this kind of portrayal and stories from the past and the present, it's a very important question that we all have to sit on what we want to project into the future, how we have to reimagine very deeply and very boldly. That is the very theme of this conference. This is a famous quote that we all have seen of Maya Angelou, my favorite once again, where it talks about how people will always remember how you made them feel. Just allow me a few minutes to connect these dots, where I'm talking about feelings and I'm talking about the very purpose, the fundamental purpose of why we would create any kind of business, be it a startup, a solopreneur, or someone who's running a large enterprise organization. We all know how important it is to have a strategy and how it is important to not only set up your business, but also scale your business. We also know how much ethics plays this, your personal branding, who you are and who are the organization that you're building or you're representing, like I am doing today, right? So if you connect the dots and if you are a startup, there'll be a lot of people who give you free advice. They might not even be a startup. They might not even have run through the journey that you are experiencing today. We hear a lot, like Paul said, two sides of the same coin. There are people who would say, when you're doing a pitch, you should focus on the story. Some people say, don't focus on the story, start your first two slides with numbers. Some people say, entrepreneurship is all about jumping off the cliff, and as you're coming down, you know how to build. That is how your risk strategy works. Some people say, this is not like a hit and lose game. You have to be very, very calculative about the risk you take. Some people say you have to build and fail fast. Some people say, no, you have to be calculative. So you know when to take these very, very seriously or very personally. And what is missing the most is, as much as we focus on the intellectual quotient of how smart I am capable of running the business. I'm capable of hiring the next important people that can scale my startup. Are we also focusing on being emotionally intelligent, the EQ side of being a founder, being a part of the organization? So today, as a representative of this organization called Zoho, where day in and day out, we focus on doing only one thing, that is building a serious software with ethics and always focusing on the people and the culture. Everyone talks about how successful Zoho is, that we are present in 150 countries. We have touched a milestone of 100 million users, like add 10 million more here. And we have reached 15,000 employees as against when I joined the organization. We were just 1,500 people back in 2010. In this journey of 26 years of Zoho's survival, Zoho's growth, Zoho's future projection, we have been able to build a family of 50 plus software applications for any kind of business, for any size, sitting anywhere across the world. Now, was this done overnight? What kind of focus we had on the people, both the employees and what we call the end user, that are customers and users across the world for Zoho? I joined Zoho. I'm basically a microbiologist. I had nothing to do in the world of software and technology. When I joined Zoho, I was a soft skills trainer where I trained people on how to stand on the stage, how to simplify a story but not sound too simplistic, how to understand the culture of the region that you're representing, how to not talk down to the end user. And I slowly became a product evangelist, because if I am not able to say the story of Zoho, what Zoho does and what Zoho sells, it is very difficult to say the story to the end user who's trying to understand all the jargons written all across the website. Today, in this span of 13 years that I have spent in the company, I had this initiative called Zoho for Startups, and I have been able to sit with some of the top leadership, been mentored by them, and I understand the chaos behind the success of these numbers. So I'm very, very happy and glad and humbled to be sharing some of these lessons from what we call Zoho's success journey or Zoho's growth journey. And interestingly, some of the core conversations revolved around these words. The purpose, why we exist, why we do, what is the vision and mission, what are the products that we are building and we want to build, what is the path that we want to take, and who are the people that should be involved in this journey. So it always revolved around the people, the process, and the product, with immense focus and passion day in, day out. So we were very, very careful even today on who we hire and how we understand two different words of the same spectrum, power and responsibility. And even today, how the top leaderships use our own tool of communication and collaboration to talk to every single person in the organization, even as we touch 20,000 employees really soon. How we take these tools, software, and how we ourselves use every day. So there is no fancy offices of Zoho across the world. You can talk to Kenny, my colleague, who's right there among you all, and he'll be very, very interested to share some of these stories in person to you all, and how we are fiercely focused on the customer compliance. What do we do with their data? Do we sell your data or not? What do we do when you want to downgrade any of your subscriptions? So every conversation is purely focused on customer privacy and security. And a lot of this is a result by which year after year we have been able to add family of users and family of apps across the spectrum. You see, somewhere in 2015 only, we reached our first milestone of 15 million users, and we were not even 50 plus applications at that point. So a lot of chaos, a lot of whiteboarding, a lot of pulling your hair, discussions, arguments go around how we dog feed, how every day we use our own products in order to be more relatable to what the customer pain points are. In which way we are able to sit in India, in a very remote place down the southern part of India, and build a very successful organization. So, in order to give you a clear view of where all of this principle and vision and mission comes from, I'm very glad if you do not know who our founder was, to introduce Mr. Sridhar Vembu to you all, the founder and CEO, and you can follow him on Twitter at svembu. And every day he believes in two things: to live a very simple life that you can see, and how he fiercely focuses on customer delight. Even today, every Friday, he is available to all of us via town hall, and we use our own tools to ask him a bunch of questions, including what is the projection for the next quarter. So this, whom you see here, is Mr. Haider Nizam, who is the president of Middle East and Africa. Not only that, he also has a portfolio of products under him, a lot of communication and collaboration apps, and a lot of apps that help you build your own apps in the marketplace. So we're talking about numerous people reporting to this person who has been in the company since its inception. Today, he has, imagine a huge tree that is Zoho. We have grown over 26 years and now we want to be across the globe. What the leadership team did that is they found people like Haider, who has served long enough, who has ingrained in himself the culture, the vision and mission of the company, who understands how globally technology works and what the future is. And they displaced him to Middle East and Africa, where he understands what is the local innovation like. He understands what the local people are like. And this helps in him taking the story of Zoho forward. And this, my dear friends, is not more of only IQ. It is a lot of emotional intelligence where the organization understands what we should do in order to keep the customers that we already have, and also add some more customers to this family. In simple terms of startup world, we call this the scaling up. So a lot of fundamentals, the key components of emotional intelligence, come into play very subconsciously every day in the conversations that you can see in Zoho, where we are very, very self-aware. We are empathetic in every email campaign and marketing materials that we send out to the world. In every conversation, the support team that has with every end user, whether they are a paying customer or not. We are very, very self-motivated, where whenever we take a responsibility, we always align on what I can do better than I did last year. So every day we focus on what we don't know that we don't know. So I'm going to need just 3-4 minutes to wrap up my presentation, where a lot of focus these days, we know the conversation is about emerging technologies. My humble request to you all is to shift as much focus and efforts to focus on emerging skills as much as emerging technologies, to bring a purpose and clarity to the youth out there who have a lot of energy, but they don't know how to channelize this. The fear that the future is always changing right under my feet is not a good feeling to have. So how nice it will be if we can shift our focus also to be really understanding of how can I sharpen my axe? How can I be better at complex problem solving? How can I be a better team member and be good at troubleshooting and understanding what user experience means? How can I be better at persuasion, which is a very important note in your selling, right? When you're selling an idea, when you're selling your business, when you're selling your product or services as a startup. Today, when we talk about Zoho's success story, 2 milestones we have reached. We are a bootstrap startup, which means we have never gotten money from external funding and we are never going to take in the future. Yet, we have crossed a milestone of $1 billion in revenue. One of the very unique unicorns you would see out there that is profitable this way. The other milestone I mentioned, that we crossed 100 million users across the world which means a lot more responsibility on how we keep doing the good work. Now, how did we reach all of this sitting here in India, and that too in southern part of India in one corner and not even in Silicon Valley? So what are the not so secret tips if I have to wrap it up? The one of the underrated things is focus. Every day when we come to work, we want to be singularly focused on how can I make the software better? How can I talk to the internal 50 plus product teams on what we hear from the end user and what can we do to better the features and conversations we have around customer delight? So focus, focus, focus every day. And how as leaders we always focus on giving back. Some of the mistakes I made that I want to tell my juniors so they don't have to repeat the same mistakes and then learn the journey, right? And how to be very smart and very sensitive in hiring, because you want people to understand your culture and vision, but at the same time you want people to never be like you, to never be as biased as you are, and always look at the generation that you belong to, but have the courage and compassion to be able to envision a future that was never like the past. Someone who has the courage and compassion, who is willing to be the leader, to take the road less traveled, to take upon challenges head on every day and be self-motivated, to always leave 100% trust on the table in the process and in the people and not have self-doubts. Always put ethics first, because we are not interested in bombarding the users with unnecessary ads, to have third-party websites, cookies on our websites, to not sell ever the customer data or compromise, and be very, very fierce in our GDPR and other compliances. And we are very, very clear when we write our white paper around data security. And as a mom, as someone who's spent 13 years in Zoho, it's very, very integral for me to be able to have a work-life balance. So there are days when I focus on parent-teachers meeting, what my daughter's doing at school, and there are days I go back home and focus on the conversation that I have with my team. So I have the privilege to enjoy a culture that always puts people's physical, psychological, and mental health first. And how we have always been frugal in spending. Be it an event, be it a new office that we want to spend at, we're always focusing on where our money and energy both goes, so that we are able to give for a longer run. We are not exhausted, in terms of resources and in terms of energy. And everyday reminder that we all bring ourselves to work, who you are is as important as what you build. So go build a personal brand, be proud of who you are, get better, spend some time in introspecting what I can do better in order to be useful, and be bold and be deep. So we realize that it is very, very, very impossible to detach the philosophical side when you become a business person. So you understand the spiritual side of who you are at work, where work is nothing but love made visible. So this is my favorite quote from Khalil Gibran, and some of the very few not so secret tips as to how Zoho has been able to come along 26 years. On that note, I want to finish off with 3 important points once again. My colleague Kenny is out there and he's going to do a massive master class on this topic, and you can bombard him with any questions that you have around Zoho, around software, and how as a startup you can make best use of this, irrespective of what role you play in your business. Do not miss that session, it's my request. And this is something that stayed with me for a long, long time, something that I read during COVID time, and I bring myself to this as an everyday reminder to be deep and bold and be courageous and to be able to imagine a future. Because long after I am gone and many of you are gone, the future generation is going to walk this earth. And it's very important to remember the core principles of fifth industrial revolution, where even as machines and robots we are imagining to walk around the earth, it's always the human element that we need to focus on. The future has to look nothing like the past, for which we have to be very, very bold. Even as we focus on generative AI and how we would bring about a lot of automation to free up the human mind space, what are you going to think about when you have a lot of time in your hands? So one side there is generative AI, and one side I want you all to simply focus on this word called generativity. So beyond who I am as an individual, beyond who I am at work, there is something that we can carry deep in our hearts that is for the well-being, for the future generations, and to care deeply and boldly beyond the circle of a family and friends as a citizen, as a global representative, as a startup founder. How can I find something that is useful long after we are gone? So thank you so much for listening to me. And that's all I have. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much for listening to me and for this opportunity.